Order a promo and track it till you receive it in minutes.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise Today. Yes, we did tell you quite a number of events played out yesterday, some of which have huge significance to what you do moving forward. But first, we've got Mr. Kingsley Odoh here with us. He's a former SA to the Minister of Power, the immediate past Minister of Power. He's the GMD and CEO of Plentrix Energy Group. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
So,
morning.
Judges, they have their meeting yesterday. And so, but of course, you know the impression people have about judges, elections, particularly the last elections. Oh, goodness, they were all over the place. Even on the social media, the online, there were different perspectives as to what people thought about the judgments and how it turned out. So I'll let you listen to this. The president of the Court of Appeal actually was speaking about perhaps what needs to be done in that regard.
We want to learn from our errors. We want to discuss what we found as wrong with our legislation pertaining to elections. Having experienced it, having tried to apply the provisions, we know that when the election...
So with this, you could break it into several bits. So it's not just for lawyers to speak now, because look, lawyers will do what lawyers do because they are the inner circle. But in terms of justice being seen to have been done, that's where regular people like us come in. So as someone who also from the outside looking through, because they say they want to learn, of course, it has to be feedback. What do you make of all of this?
Chamberlain, thank you for this question. Nigeria is truly work in progress from many perspectives, right? So if we look at what had transpired in justice system right before election, after the election, and the things that played out, it means that there is a whole lot of work that needs to be done. I think they know, and they're admitting to the fact, they admit that, look, there have been challenges, and they need to look into the system, work on themselves. I heard what you said now. It's critical that they know that there were all kinds of stuff, you know, ranging from what happened yesterday. I heard that the remuneration for judges had been quite a challenge in the last 16 years. I think that's a recipe for disaster. When people are not properly remunerated and then you want them to... And I also heard you saliently saying, people would now make efforts to try to see how they can help themselves by reason of the challenges. So we need to first backtrack, look at the entire system, ask ourselves, are we doing what is right to the judges and all the people who work, I think the clerks and all of those who work in the court systems or in the justice system of this country? We need to deal with that. The second thing is that we need to begin to also deal with the criminality in this country. There's so much criminality in this country. And so if we don't have a way of properly monitoring and evaluating processes, outcomes and feedbacks, then we're always going to have to come back in these loops of people challenged, justifying whatever they do. And we've got to be courageous in fixing this country, Chamberlain.
You know, there was something that happened some time ago, a while ago, when former President Jonathan, I think, did he just come into office, but he was thereabouts. And then it was about appointment of who has the Independent National Electoral Commission. And there was a lot of uproar from citizens, and they thought, no, we needed a lot of independence. We just don't want your lackeys, government lackeys, pulling the strings here and there. And they just, okay, go ahead, from what we heard. Bring whoever, and that's how Professor Jega came on the saddle. People want that independence. We've had several lawyers who've come here and told us, identified part of the challenges they think should be addressed in the judiciary is the way judges and judicial officers are appointed and remunerated, in terms of it coming from source and then they deciding who ascends. Because if that were not the case,
then we need to, again, rework the process. And independence means that it's not by just coming from outside to select somebody, but a process that had gone through some levels of iteration, some levels I think more of the iteration to see that the best candidate is who sits on that seat. Once that happens, I think
What do you think is the reason why independence of the judiciary is not, it hasn't happened yet? This sounds like something I've been hearing for a very long time. It sounds like something we've always said every year. Oh, the judiciary needs independence, especially at local levels. Oh, we need them to be independent. What's the problem? Why hasn't this been done, in your view?
In my view, I think the political will to get it done. See, you cannot remove politics from all of this, but you now get to a point where you need to, and all of us must do this. It means that Nigeria is ready to rise. Nigeria has really suffered a lot of hits, and this across all sectors. And so what we then must do at this point is look critically at all our processes, bring up things that will define our growth, highlight them, and begin to tick the boxes along those lines. So to answer you, Kayla, is, look, the political will to get the people to do what they have to do, and then make sure that they do it.
You say we, the people.
All of
Who
us.
are these people? Who are the people that are holding it back? Can we, is there a benefit that they are getting? Because, you know, the truth is, as long as someone is benefiting from disorder, no matter how many times you try to arrange the place, the person will always scuttle it. That's just the truth. How do we nip this in the bud once and for all? Who's holding the gun?
It's a good question. But I don't know that. I don't think that question needs any answer, because the truth is, it's obvious that the politicians and those in the helm of affairs, they're the ones who would, at every turn, at every dispensation, or rather every political dispensation, there are a bunch of people who lead us. And when they lead, they would have to put for the next, and on and on. So it is for a leader who wants to really define a reset path for growth, you know, and say, look, you know what? I think enough is enough. Let's begin to reset the country and let's begin to get things right.
You know?
Yeah.
But if, well, some say it's 98%, some say it's 99.9% of anyone who is in any political office. Look, you always want things to go your way. You always want institutions to favor you, and so you might help yourself, you know, going beyond the scope, and so they will not naturally want to relinquish such powers of, no, let this be independent, so they can go against me, unless the people rise up and say, no, look, this is about us, this is about the country.
The people compel them.
You will come and go, but the country remains. So if the people don't rise up and do that, we expect these things to change like that.
Chamberlain, countries that reset build strong institutions. Usually it's not about chaos and fight and protests.
It doesn't have to be in a chaotic way.
It must come from strong institutions that abide by their rules, and also there are penalties for not doing what you have to do. So maybe the leadership should say, look, you know what? Beyond trying to influence,
and they've not said all these things you want them to say.
Beyond trying to influence a lot of these things, Chamberlain, is the fact that we can look at institutions that can bring beautiful and quick reforms in a nation like Nigeria.
So for your sector,
yes,
what would go through your mind if someone were to tell you, okay, look, we had to go to court on this kind of matter? What would you think? Would you be confident that, yes, let's go, I'll get justice, or you will know what to expect?
So it's a good question. Very good question. And that's why I said earlier that for every department of this country, that I want to put it in that form, every aspect of this nation, we have suffered so much by way of misrule. I mean, and this is not, this government, I'm sure, is doing a lot to try to reset a bit, but if you look at our historical positions, it's suffered so much. And so the justice system as well has suffered. I mean, you cannot isolate the justice system that is in a country that has all of those things. We are all in a system, a community. It's an ecosystem, and therefore, every aspect of this and department of this nation, police, customs, judiciary, and all of this, we almost begin to say, look, you know what? Let's now build strong institutions.
So your answer is that you won't be too confident to go to court?
Naturally, because today we all know the truth about, even the judges and the lawyers, they know the truth about the justice system.
Oh dear.
So
that's so scary.
No.
Listen, do you understand how scary it is for a country to have people who do not believe in the justice system?
That's huge.
That is, it's almost like the breakdown of a democratic system. But I do get your point.
Good, but
we need to get systems and institutions that work. That takes time, effort, political will. Can we get going?
yes,
Can we start?
Yes, we can. As a matter of fact, we should have started yesterday. The truth is, we can start. And once we have the will, the good intention, selfless leadership, and transparent leadership. Look, nobody says a leader cannot make a mistake, but there are what you call honest mistakes. And then I am transparent, I'm honest, I tell you as is, and I'm running this process in a way that you know.
Okay, so let's try this. Something that happened yesterday.
Yes.
NEC of Nigeria, of Labour, they held their neck and they spoke about electricity tariff, the minimum wage. They were suggesting, they proposed 615,000 naira minimum wage. They went to table to negotiate with government, and government comes up with what? 48,000 naira. Is that a mistake?
Okay, you know, Chamberlain, there are two sides to this. I always tell you that I see the entire spectrum. I sit outside. And because I have had the privilege of serving in some way as an advisor, I have a more granular approach to some of these things. Now, let's look at the global, which is minimum wage cutting across, not power sector now, cutting across the civil servants, cutting across labor and all of this.
Why not power sector?
No, power sector is fine. Power sector is also part of this.
We'll come to that.
We'll come to that. But I say that it's negotiations. So government on its part must be transparent enough. This is where these things break down. Chamberlain, if you don't have the facts, you cannot take a decision. Or if you take a decision without the facts, then you would 9 to 10 take a faulty decision.
So what's the point?
The point is, if government is really presenting the facts as they are and being honest and leaving the path, maybe Labour would say, these are facts, and they're also making the necessary sacrifices. My point, therefore, is government must be seen to make the necessary sacrifices while they tell Labour, because it is tough. The common man out there is really, really suffering. Okay,
but the one we just spoke about now, guys, Judiciary.
Yes.
I think the Attorney General, Minister of Finance, I think the report is that they are supporting the 300% increase for the Judiciary. So if you were sitting just on the flanks and you're Labour, you're watching all of this, would you say that government has come up with the fact and saying, no, we can't do more than 48 or thereabout, and then you see 300% increase here? How would you process that? Okay, I have not seen the increments that have happened in the last
maybe 10 years in the civil service structure. I expect that that must have happened. If not, it's a sad situation. However, in the judiciary, from what I read, from what I heard, there's never been an inch of increment in the last 16 years. I mean, it's an aberration. It's an anomaly. 16 years of a bunch of people who have worked. And what are you saying? You're saying that, so 16 years of no increment, Chamberlain. You're leaving room for so many
No, I understand your point, but I'm only asking.
That's on that part.
Okay.
Then on the general term,
yeah.
If you're doing this for the judiciary, then I'm sure you need to think that the judiciary or the justice system or people who work in that sector also living in Nigeria like the other bunch of people. But I think this is a constant conversation. It's a dialogue and a negotiation. If government says they can pay 48,000 naira and you're coming from 600 plus thousand naira.
There's a conspiracy theory that suggests that government is doing this for the judiciary because you know that you'll appear before them at some point. And so if you do this kind of things, well, chances are that, who knows?
Chamberlain, it's neither here nor there.
But you just said yourself that if you're going to go to court, that even the judges themselves know something is wrong.
Because we know where we are as a nation. And we're just telling ourselves some truth, right?
Yeah, we have to.
However, that does not mean that it's not solvable. We cannot reset it like every other sector in this country.
How?
Leadership. Sincere, transparent leadership.
You see how this comes? It's like the chicken and the egg, which comes first. When you're looking at the fact that it's those in the helm of authority that do not want this to work because they're benefiting from the disorder. And then you also say that the onus is on them as well.
The onus is always on leadership. The onus is always
is there nothing else that can be done? Because you can't expect me. It's like if I'm making money from selling generators, that is my business. And then you say we should fix which power sector? Fix what?
No,
so I shouldn't eat because you want electricity in your house.
So you see,
so when you have people that think like that and they're in governance, how can you effect change? How can you build institutions when the corruption is so endemic? We've gotten to where people don't even care if the country is working. Let me take what I can while I can and run off.
Kayla, that is a sad situation. That's a sad position to be as a nation or as a people. There is room for patriotism. There's room for, if this system collapses, this is the only country you have. And that is the truth. So even as leaders, we're all here in Abuja. If, God forbid, if this system collapses, I mean, Abuja, there's no National Assembly anymore. There's no, even this justice, judiciary, all this, everything goes. So the point is, we must all now realize that, look, Nigeria needs to work for all of us to be here. And the working of Nigeria should be the primary responsibility of leadership. That, look, let us start fixing this country because it's reached that point. And so when you have, and it takes one man, really, to say, look, let these things work. And as these things work, you begin to see, because transparent leadership is not far-fetched. It happens, and you know this is transparent leadership. And it keeps going, and you keep getting better. You know, coming out of the woods is a systematic approach and a deliberate approach. It's not something that you want to do and say, so this is the point, Kayla. We all want to put our hands on them.
Labour, after that NEC meeting of theirs yesterday, says electricity tariff, they should revert to status quo. And reports are indicating that they're preparing for a strike. They're insisting on the May 31 deadline, both for the minimum wage and the electricity tariff. So, as someone who is in that sector, is it possible to get back to the former tariff?
Chamberlain, thank you for that question, and it's a very important question. We must tell ourselves some truths. I recall that we had mentioned that the system is on the verge of collapse. I mean, the electricity market, the NESI, the Nigerian electricity supply industry, is at the verge. And why is it? Because there's been subsidies that come years that are not paid. So I recall also mentioning that, look, you know, in the value chain, there's a gas supplier who supplies to the generator, who generates, and then feeds the grid, and then the grid gets that power to the end customer. And also don't forget, Chamberlain, that the gas supplier is a private company. It's not government. Maybe government has some interest in some of those, but it's private. The generator is 100% private. The transmission is where government is, because government thinks this is national assets, national infrastructure. We need to keep that, okay? Then you come downstream. Downstream is 60-40. 60 private, 40 government. And government, again, is broken down state, local governments, and all of those structures. So the point is, if you have a system that has 80% of it as private, Chamberlain, how do you know these companies, because they are private concerns, they need to make profit, right? So if there's been subsidy coming up to about 3 trillion, so for the gas supplier is owed about $1.3 billion. That's from what we heard from NERC, from their assessment. That's the gas supplier. The generator, a bunch of them are owed about 3 trillion or so. And then there are all kinds of losses downstream. How can, and what NERC has done is some mechanism to say, look, we cannot let everybody pay this new tariff. So band B to E, they're left alone in the old structure. Band A are people who they perceive.
Isn't that is outrightly discriminatory?
Why does that exist? Let's get down to, because why are there different bands for electricity? Why don't you just supply electricity?
So you see, the Nigerian challenge has given, I don't know whether there are bans in other countries, I've not done that study, but the Nigerian challenge is that the quantum of energy you get by reason of where you are can determine, or rather, where you are determines technically the quantum of energy you get. The truth is there are industries that really require electricity. So industries and prime areas can get that, and they can pay for electricity. Electricity is a commodity, Kayla. You must understand that it is supposed to be paid for. It's a social service, so it is a private concern wrapped in social service, right? So it's a tricky situation. If government owned all the infrastructure, if government was providing the electricity to everybody, then we can say this. But I want to recover my investment.
So it is not supplying electricity to everybody?
It's supplying electricity to everybody in the quantums and bits that are affordable. There are people who cannot pay for electricity, trust me. And so they can't pay more than 2,000, 3,000 naira every month. If you give them, I'm not discriminating here, but if you give them 20 hours of electricity every day, that money cannot come back because they will not pay for it. You will still eventually go and cut them off.
So
why?
If they wanted to get their monies, these electricity companies, the government has said time and again, meter everybody.
Good, we're coming to that.
Why are they not
why are they not
people?
metered? So you pay for what you use.
Yeah,
if you don't
I agree.
you don't pay.
Simple.
Everyone keeps it moving. Why does it have to be like this?
Kayla, we're here analyzing historical challenges that we've had. At this point, you need to look back. First, the unbundling in 2013, right? After the unbundling, all kinds of somersaults. There was no money. They thought they had money, but they didn't invest. The discos at that point, you know, and so the stories are many, but let's leave the story. Let's put all of them in a box and say, look, we're here now, Kayla.
Okay.
How do we come out of here? You have to be innovative. See, if you want to look back, you can never go forward. I'm not saying don't look back to learn the lessons, but if you keep...
Are we learning the lessons?
Oh, yes, we are.
What are we doing differently now?
That's one of the things. In the various bans for people. Now, NERC had assessed that there are... First, the DISCO submitted about 800 feeders. NERC's assessment was 480 feeders. And of those 480 feeders, 80% of them are metered. And so the revenue stream coming from those metered customers in Band A would, in a way, reduce the subsidy that government is paying by close to 1.4 trillion, 1.5 trillion at the end of the period. Because government has seen the subsidy, it's there, it's staggering, it's frightening as well. So if you don't find ways and innovative ways with understanding, because what I expect Labour, all the unions and rightfully so, because there have been historical challenges that has brought us here. We're here now, Kayla.
Well, you haven't addressed this question. They had CAPME, they had different programs to meter Nigerians.
Okay.
Why is
Let me
that
go
not
to
happening?
each of the programs, right? And the bane of every program had been misappropriation of funds, and that is the truth. So CAPME.
By who?
By you and I, Kayla.
We are the ones I don't know.
by Nigerians. Okay, sorry.
Is it the Nigerians that are
so
misappropriating the funds?
Let me tell you how these programs have failed over the years. So CAPME, after the unbundling, CAPME is Capital Advance Payment Metering and Infrastructure or implementation. That failed. How was CAPME formed? CAPME is pay monies to the discos, right? And the discos will provide meters. So they paid money to the discos. Remember, discos, the initial thought was that they had money, but they've been broke for a bit, right? So monies that went into the discos didn't come back with meters as it's supposed to be. So
discos misappropriated the money.
That's the first one. Okay, that was CAPME. And NERC then, I think, was Dr. Sam Amadi. I think that's him. And no, even I think before Sam Amadi. So they scrapped CAPME and said, you know what, let's create another innovation.
Sam Amadi has said CAPME was working. That there were
failed.
A few things that they were supposed to address.
CAPME failed. I'm a sector practitioner. CAPME failed. I mean, you can go online. CAPME failed woefully because the monies couldn't come back to provide the meters. And Nigerians were willing and they paid for this meter. And that's the truth. Then MAP came.
And Nigerians didn't get their monies back for those who paid to the discos.
Right.
They didn't get the money, they didn't get the meters.
Justice?
You know,
they didn't get the justice for the person that stole the money?
Sometimes, you know, this black hole situation, I mean, even the discos, tomorrow, till today, they're still trying to struggle to pay their debts and all of that. So you need to be clear in your mind that if somebody is still struggling to even pay for the energy and pay for the debts that they owe, and this is massive. I don't have the figures for the debts.
So before you move to that next point,
yes,
if the monies went to the discos, they were paid to provide meters to the people, they misappropriated the money. If you're telling people that that is why the program failed, nobody was prosecuted for that, so because of that, you scrapped the program? And then the same discos are the ones talking about bandits, or what?
We must put this in perspective. If we continue to weep and cry that the milk is spilled and all of this.
Are we saying it's okay to appropriate money and move on?
Why we're saying it's not okay, right? We're saying that in that era, when CAPME failed, you must begin to say, what can we do? And MAP came.
The era passed. Multiple things happened afterwards.
Correct.
Where is the person who was held responsible?
That is not the question that I can answer.
I know it's not a question that you can answer, but you have to understand that is the question in the minds of the Nigerians.
I am saying
who was held responsible for the failure that has caused the problem that I am facing? No one is able to give you that answer. It was scrapped. It was scrapped.
So true.
But nothing was done. Another one came. Okay, let's move to the next program.
MAP came.
After
Meter
MAP.
Asset Provider.
Okay.
Meter Asset Provider has had a lot of struggles, and because that was having a layer between the disco and the meter subscriber. So he pays to the MAP, right? And these are all regulations by NEC anyway. And then he's supposed to provide this. So there's been all kinds, meaning because the MAP gets meter from the meter manufacturer, and sometimes the MAP has not paid the meter manufacturer, and so there is no. So there are all kinds of situations, you know. So challenges
MAP
there.
failed.
MAP is wobbling. I mean, let's be honest. MAP is still
It hasn't delivered, so it failed.
So let's put it in a way that it's still wobbling to see if it can succeed. So
why is it wobbling? Misappropriation.
Misappropriation
again?
at some
Again.
point.
You see, that's the point.
Okay, let's move on to the next
No, before
program.
you move on to the next program. Because, look, these are the things that they happen in this country. And, you know, you expect the average Nigerians who are coughing out money to pay for these things, they should just take it lightly. Cap me fail because of misappropriation. MAP, you say, is wobbling, misappropriation. No matter the program you come up with next, they will do the same thing because they know that nothing will happen to them. That's why they keep doing it.
But government is doing stuff.
Okay.
Are they prosecuting people?
After MAP,
NMMP came.
Okay.
NMMP is National Mass Metering Program, which was funded phase 0, phase 0. Look, we know the problems.
Is it the one that we also heard that Tom Chap was also misappropriating money for that program?
Which chap now? I don't know about any chap.
So yeah, the
NMMP, yes. NMMP, National Mass Metering Program.
Okay.
Right? So that also had its challenges. So phase 0 had challenges and phase 1 could not be funded because of the challenges of phase 0. But the truth is...
What was the challenge of phase 0?
Chamberlain said...
I know! what was it? Sorry.
Wow.
Okay.
What was the challenge with phase 0?
Okay, so I think that all the meters promised...
Misappropriations?
All the meters promised...
So you see?
Maybe we're not delivered. All the meters promised. No, I don't know what the
I know gentleman was suspended because of some of these things
I don't know what
by this administration.
Okay, so, but government has looked at it and says, look, we must meter. And government is, I hear the government is doing a whole lot to meter every home. The truth is, metering is the lifeblood of the sector.
How do we believe that they're doing a whole lot to ensure people are metered?
So when you see the meters, I think you know that government is trying to do. So government is sinking.
People are paying for. People almost easy to go through the eye of a needle for you to even get some of these meters.
Just believe, because government is making efforts. Just recently, I heard there's a World Bank in the $7.6 billion. There's a $500 million for metering, and that, if you put that estimate, maybe between 3 to 4 million meters. There's also other actions that PMI, I think PMI, Presidential Metering Initiative, is taking to ensure that homes are properly metered with smart, intelligent meters. Once this is done, it will ramp up on revenue. It will create some confidence in the market. And you will know that, look, for any energy I consume is what I'm paying for, and I'm confident that... So, Chamberlain, we're all work in progress here. I mean, this is talking about power sector, which is truly very important. But there are also other things. It
doesn't look like work in progress, because all of these misappropriations, nothing's happened. The same thing government told us about petrol subsidy. Oh, yeah, there were some, what do they call them, subsidy thieves and things like that. Subsidy was gone. Who are those being prosecuted now for it? I haven't heard or seen if I missed it. So these are the things that happen. And you expect people to keep coughing out the money and the high tariff. So now, from what you're saying, it's just you putting it differently that it will be difficult to go back to the old tariff.
It will be difficult because, I mean, unless...
Or that they can't even do that.
They can't. The truth is, why... I wanted to ask Labour, what is this agitation for? In this band, a whole lot of them, they are able to pay. Nothing has happened to a bunch of people in band B to band E. In this band A, a whole lot of them are able to pay, unless there's something we're missing here.
Well, part of what we're missing is it just appears as though the discourse that they don't look disposed to providing meters, because you just highlighted, chronicled how funds were provided, they misappropriated, they didn't provide the meters, but then you say they are being innovative by coming up with a band.
No, this
because
is
they want to get money.
Let me tell you what Labour is upset about, because that's what you asked. You want to know why Labour is protesting this? Because it is affecting businesses. If many businesses are being billed band A, you have basically increased their cost, and for that, many of them will not be able to survive. That's just one of the issues that's
Labour's issue.
Yes, one of them.
My expectation, therefore, is that Labour would engage the process. You see, engaging the process is a conversation, not you sit over there and I sit over here. But a conversation that works, and we meet at a middle ground and say, look, you know what? This is where we are. This is the situation in terms of debt. This is the situation in terms of subsidy. How do we come to a middle ground?
But you know that Labour doesn't revert to strike as the first option. It's always the last option from what they tell us. They engage, they write, ASU, for instance, they write for, since when? For how many decades? And so they say they engage, and the authorities don't always appear disposed favorably to accede to their demands, and hence they have to down tools.
So I think that the challenges we've had, Chamberlain, is the information dissemination mechanism that seem to always wobble. We don't seem, because for you to trust me, I have to be transparent to you. And I must have proven to you over time that I'm trustworthy.
Is the power sector transparent? Are they transparent there?
Before now, no. And I'm being very honest. Before now, no. And if we don't also put a reset structure, we're all going to suffer.
Why do you think they are now?
No, because we see the efforts of government to see, look, maybe there is some fresh air, breath of fresh air coming into the sector.
What is this effort specifically?
The effort is metering. I mean, if government is able to really churn out 10 million meters today.
I don't understand what you say the effort is metering. What has happened?
So when we meter every home, the discos will not have the opportunity to give you estimated billing, which they will not account for.
But it doesn't appear as though they are willing, they are on course in doing that.
The government is on course.
If they are comfortable to come up with bands, go for the ones that can get which bank can give you the money, you go for it.
No.
What makes you think that I'll be willing to...
Are you understanding the whole concept of band A to E?
For those who can pay.
No, so
is that not the concept?
It is.
And I'm asking, why should we have people on bands in the first place? Provide electricity across board, whoever can pay,
pay for what we use. Why does
by metering?
By metering.
Yeah.
And the government is...
So what's with the bands?
So government is trying to do that. Let me tell you the truth.
By starting with...
once everybody is metered, I mean, once everybody is metered, trust me, I know that this resentment is going to always be there. People are really fed up, people are upset, and these are really...
Because businesses are failing.
Historical challenges that we have had. Businesses are failing. And I mean, I'm not speaking for government, but we have global issues, right? However, if we are innovative about how to solve our problems, so I ask this question.
We didn't elect a global president or global executive.
I understand.
They need to address the ones for which we elected them.
Chamberlain, the challenge is, we have a country we need to fix, okay. Right?
All right. We need to wrap up at this time. We do thank you for coming on. Mr. Kingsley Odoh is a former advisor to the immediate past Minister of Power and also the GMD and CEO of Plantrix Energy Group, the oil and gas sector. Thank you for coming on today.
Pleasure has been mine. Thank you, Chamberlain.
All right. We'll be back in a moment with Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Stay on with us.